Okay, so now we're on to the reason most students do AS Media, the practical production. I know that's why I took it. In this section, we're going to show you how to approach and produce the following coursework: a magazine cover and feature, and an advertisement for a magazine. Now, different exam boards approach coursework in various ways. However, all ask you to produce 3 stages of production. These are the brief or pre-production piece, the finished product or production piece, and an evaluation or post-production stage. Now, rather than talk at you and explain what is involved with each section, we're going to use examples and demonstrate some of the skills you need to master. Right, for our first piece of coursework, we're going to produce a cover and feature for a new art house film magazine. Try and make sure you do something for coursework that you're really interested in. Even if your teacher has told you your coursework must be a particular type of media, you can still choose the content. This will make sure you're motivated throughout the task. Make sure it will have a national appeal and not be too localised. In other words, something which will appeal to audiences everywhere. So let's start with the brief. Right, so this is the first stage of your coursework. For the AQA, it is approximately 750 words in length, and if you don't get this right, you're going to have problems, as it forms the basis for the rest of your coursework. Think of the 3 different stages like building blocks. If the one on the bottom crumbles, the one on top will too. The WJEC board will ask you to produce a pre-production piece, accompanied by a 500-word report. Although less words, this is essentially the same as the brief, so you can use this as a guideline whichever board you are using. So what is a brief, I hear you say? A brief explains the purpose of the production. It outlines what the project is and how it will be carried out. So the brief will include stuff like what technology is going to be used, which audience the product is aimed at, research and scheduling, or when you're going to do what. And last but not least, who's going to see or buy it. So where do I get all this information from? Well, sorry, but this all has to do with planning. This can be the most time-consuming part of the process, so let's do some detective work. What are the main aims of our production? Well, our aim is to create a magazine that promotes art house films to teenagers. Now, we intend to do this by designing a magazine with a strong commercial brand image. Now, we recognise that some of the existing magazines, such as Empire and Total Film, have an established market. So the layout of the magazines are now an instantly recognisable format. Therefore, the codes and conventions that have been used to construct the visual imagery are instantly recognisable and as such credible. We'll be deliberately aiming at the 18 to 25 age group, because then we'll be able to do some primary research using other students, as well as some semiotic analysis of the example magazines. So how are we going to categorise the target audience? Well, age groups. My target audience is 18 to 25-year-olds and aimed at mixed gender. Empire and Total Film already have an established audience. I intend to use visual imagery and conventions used for these magazines as the visual format for my magazine. This will help us to create credibility and also give the art house genre the same commercial appeal as blockbuster films. Lifestyle. Students who live at home or are supported by their parents at university with lots of disposable income. Research. Primarily in the form of questionnaires for my target audience. My questionnaire doesn't ask leading questions and allows choice in answering. It's also not too long, since no one is going to want to spend huge amounts of time filling in long questionnaires, however cute they may feel you are. Now, don't be fooled into thinking this is a quick and easy method that involves asking the occasional question while drinking large amounts of fizzy drinks in the canteen. This is time-consuming. To make sure the questions are answered properly and that you've interviewed enough people to make it valid. You need to interview at least 25 of your target group to start getting a picture of what they read and what they like about the layout, content and imagery of their favourite magazines. Okay, so what technology am I going to use? Well, at school I'm lucky enough to have access to an Apple Mac running the latest desktop publishing software. This should be able to do the job. However, I have a short time to complete my coursework as I'm studying other subjects as well. So one of the major hurdles is allowing enough time for me to learn how to use the software to create the design and graphics. Now I have 3 months to complete my coursework and hand it in. This is because my teacher has told my class that if I leave my coursework to the last minute or after Christmas, I'll end up spending too much time on it and not enough time studying for my other exams. The finished product or production piece. Okay, the results of my questionnaires. 30% by Total Film, 30% by Empire, 20% by Kerrang, and 10% by PlayStation 2 or one of the unofficial versions of PlayStation. All these tend to be impulse buys rather than on a monthly basis. 10% buy magazines only occasionally because they usually look at magazines online. When asked why the students bought either Total Film or Empire, most explain that their choice is based on what's in the shop. Most small shops don't stock both, but readers like both because they know what to expect. They know they'll get value for money. This very much fitted into the research I've done on the importance of branding and how branding lowers the risk for the consumer. The branding of both Total Film and Empire consists not just of the name of the magazine, but the layout, logo, style, and content of the magazines. Identifying codes and conventions. Now, when you do this, you'll need to analyse a selection of magazines that your target audience reads. We're going to look at Empire as our example. Layout. Okay, let's have a look at the cover of Empire. I just happen to have one here with me. Okay, well, we can see the cover has a strong brand image. Empire in bold red and a distinctive typeface. The dramatic image of King Kong is clearly visible behind the text, and the darkness of the image allows the gold lettering of Kong to stand out. 3 different colours are used for text. Red just for the title of the magazine, white as leading text, and gold secondary text. Although the front cover is busy with different headlines, thanks to the use of different colouring, all the text is still easy to read. For those who don't know the story, the image creates a narrative enigma and so makes the reader want to know more. The text signifies we will have our money's worth. Look at the strapline at the top. 40-page home entertainment guide. The story of King Kong is highlighted as a world exclusive. In other words, Empire got the story first. On set suggests the reader will learn something new behind the scenes. The question asked on the cover, can Peter Jackson work his Lord of the Rings magic on the classic monster movie, could intrigue the reader and make them want to find out more about King Kong. Other articles are introduced in the same way. Stars are introduced in the titles of film, echoes of the industry Empire is writing about. We have Russell Crowe, a star being used to lure the reader to buy the magazine. Remember, stars like Crowe are like brands, used and treated like commodities. Here, his name and reputation is being used to attract the reader to the magazine. The description of the article is, on throwing punches and phones. This will attract fans of Russell Crowe. Will this tell them what he's really like? Another enigma is created. The strapline, "We love the 80s, acts as a hook for the audience who want to know more. The date and issue number reinforce credibility. This issue is 196, and the fact that it's so high connotes that it's established and creates credibility. The price is £3.50, which isn't too expensive for a magazine which will be perceived as such good value. My research suggested that the students I interviewed wouldn't usually spend more than £3.99 on a magazine. So when designing the front cover, where do I begin? Well, let's start with the codes and conventions we're going to use to construct our new magazine. If we follow the codes from Empire, we will do the following. A simple name, no more than 2 words. Paper quality, glossy, high quality paper to make the reader feel they are getting value for money. Primary colour for the name, a recognisable typeface which acts as a logo at the same time. A name that has significance already, appealing to a mass market. That suggests the magazine is the authority on art house films. Text on front, which entices the audience to buy the magazine using Enigma codes. Language, that suggests exclusive content. Imagery on front must be large, dramatic and imposing, with one main focus, the one that will appeal to the majority, and then only a couple of other potential stories highlighted, so the main focus isn't distracted from. Issue number. Use the month and year, for example, June 2006. Use of a star. Although art house films don't have stars as the Hollywood system has, it does have famous faces. Promise of an interview has to be given, perhaps a story suggesting a scandal of some sort. Okay, these are the rules I'm going to use. Let's look at an expert doing it.
Right then, here we are staring at a blank sheet of paper, which is where all the best ideas start. We've got a brief, which is to design a magazine which is all about world cinema. As it's a student project and we've only been given the merest outline of a brief, we might like to think about some names. So we thought perhaps Cine World. We thought about Kino World. We thought about World Cinema. We had World Film. And we had a few other ideas, but we really have to get on with the job. So we look at these things and we decide which is the best name that we've come up with, because we don't want to spend far more time on this than we need to. And we've decided that we're going to use World Film because it's direct. It tells us exactly what the contents of the magazine are going to be about. It implies that there might be a worldwide readership, and we liked it, so we're going to use World Film as our title. So once we have a title, we need to move on to some design ideas for the front cover of this possible magazine. So we'll go to another blank sheet of paper and we'll have go at a couple of little thumbnail sketches. If we assume the magazine's going to be A4, it's going to have the title somewhere along the top third, because that's where it'll sit nicely in the magazine racks. We're going to call it World Film, as we said. We need perhaps the title, which is going to be here. We probably need a large picture in this area, possibly 2 or 3 inset pictures, and a barcode, because the magazine always has to have a barcode. Perhaps something about the regular features, and something along here telling us the issue number, perhaps the price, and then laid over the photograph will be the main story, the main feature in the magazine. On that basis then, we could move on to tightening the design up a little bit. You might spend some time looking through some typefaces, perhaps on your computer, or even going to the library and looking at some books about typography. We've decided for this particular magazine we're going to go for a very traditional sans serif typeface. In fact, we're going to use Arial Black because that's something available on most PCs and in fact most computers, including Apple Macs. On the basis that we're going to do this, we then need to make this title distinctive in some way. We could have done it by perhaps making World italic and Film very, very bold. These little thumbnail sketches are just useful as a a means of trying things out. But we can leave the details of this until we actually get the layout up on the computer, and then we can do some experimentation with typefaces. But we quite like the idea of making world and film joined together, where the F and the D joins together, but the two words separated by a different coloured background perhaps. So we might make this black against a pale colour here, and we might make this area here darker and make the lettering white out of it. But again, we can sort out these nitty-gritty details when we get onto the computer. Assuming the photo takes this whole area up, we have to decide what colour the subheading titles will be when we see the actual photograph, because if the photo is dark, these need to be light. If the photo is light, these can be dark, possibly in a colour, maybe not. And then perhaps under the main feature story we may have some sub-features of importance, and then in this bottom area perhaps we'll reserve that for regular features like DVD reviews, what's on in the cinema, the letters page, that sort of thing. Right, here we are, a blank computer screen. The program we're using is Quark Express, which is going to be familiar to all you budding graphic designers out there. We're starting off with a blank sheet of A4 paper. I'm going to put some guidelines in just to give us an idea of what we're working with. So I'll put a guideline there, just a little way down the page. I'm then going to put some boxes in here which we can add colour to later. Just put one here like that, and we'll put another one here like this. And over the top of this we're going to put our title. So just get some text boxes like this. I'm going to type the word world. We'll make this bigger. Perhaps change it to the appropriate font. As I said earlier, we'll just use Arial Black because that's conveniently available on most systems. That might be a little bit too big, so we'll take it down a little bit in size, and then we'll do another text box here, and we'll do the word film. We make this the same size as that, which is 111 points. Size, other, 111, style, Arial Black, and we'll put this one up here like that. And we'll just touch the F onto the D like this. Which is an idea which I quite like. And then we've got these picture boxes behind here which we're going to use to add the colour to. So we'll make this one, perhaps, just for the sake of argument, we'll make this one yellow. And then we'll make this one here black. Just move it across to where the D is. And then we'll take this text and the word film, and we'll change the colour of that to white. And then just a quick look by turning the guides off. You can see that we have a very strong image for the front. The notion of the D and the F joined together, which ties the world and the film together nicely. If we turn our guides back on again, you can see that I've left a space here which we're going to insert any dates, issue numbers and so on in. We'll put a text box in that now. We'll call it issue 1. We'll spell it out instead of putting a number because it's just a little bit more avant-garde. And then on the other side we'll put the price, let's say $4.99. Again, let's make this Arial black. There's nothing wrong with using the same typeface. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to something else. That looks fine, possibly a little bit bigger. 14 point, like that. Let's move this out of the way. And then the next thing we need to do is find a suitable picture for this box here. We could go on the internet and have a look for something. So we had a quick look at indiewire.com, and as you can see there's something about a film festival in Sarajevo later this year, and here's an image of a film all about Iraq, which I think we can lift. So we'll just save the image to the desktop, we'll put this away for a minute, go back to our world film, and then we'll find the image. Must be here somewhere. Obviously not that. There we are. We'll just take this film up in size in the space we've got here. It's a lovely image. Just move it across. And since we found a lovely image, and there's obviously some buzz going on in the film world at the moment about Iraq, perhaps we should say run our leading feature about independent filmmaking in Iraq. So let's put something in across here. Let's call it filmmaking in Iraq today. We can't see that yet, but we'll change the font to something bigger, and we'll change the colour to white. Then we can make it perhaps a little bit bigger than that. Filmmaking in Iraq today. Film making, 2 words, in Iraq today. Not happy with that. Needs a bit of tweaking. No, I don't like that at all. We'll have to think about that. We'll come back to that later. Perhaps it should be bolder. Back again to Arial black. Filmmaking in Iraq. Let's just leave it at that. That's quite nice. Filmmaking in Iraq. And then we'll come back to that later and perhaps put a drop shadow or something to make it stand out more. Maybe change the leading so that it's a little bit less spaced out, a bit tighter. So we'll make the leading -10, for instance. That's too much. We'll make it a bit using the keyboard shortcuts. That's better. So we'll just save that. And then right, I think this might work better on the other side. So we move it across here, and it can go a little bit bigger then because it can fit in this space between these heads here. That's too big. Filmmaking in Iraq. Let's make it a more interesting feature. We'll put we speak to director. Let's try that. Color white. Move it down a little bit. So that's our main story. So we've got a strong headline. So we've got a strong masthead for the magazine. We've got issue number, price, and any other relevant details that might be necessary can go in there. We've got one main feature story with a still from the film, and then we can perhaps put some subsidiary stories here or down in this area here, and then in the bottom here we'll have regular features. So if we put a text box in the bottom here, we can put some bullet points, and put regular features. We'll take this up, make that white. Actually, let's make that yellow for a change. And colour, yellow, font. Let's use the Arial black once more. That can be bigger. Regular features. DVD and cinema reviews. Competition. Win a DVD player. Always a good competition prize for this sort of magazine. Now then, perhaps we could also do with some subsidiary story just across here, perhaps featurettes, shall we call them. Just copy that, put that there. Then we'll make this smaller. We'll put some stories. What can we have here? News from the Venice Film Festival. Let's move that across here. Correct our problems. Film history. Wales. Because a lot of people don't realise that some of the film pioneers were actually based in Wales. So we'll save that. Let's have a look. We'll turn off the guidelines and the rulers. There you are, and you've got a magazine cover. It may not be the best magazine cover in the world, but for the purposes of this project I think it's quite good. I think a question you should always ask yourself is, if you put your project result in a newsstand in WH Smith's, would it stand out and look like a student work, or would it look convincingly like an actual film magazine? Anyway, there we are, that's our first effort. We've used Quark Express for this, but you could probably produce something very similar using Word or Microsoft Publisher, whatever you have.
Well, that looks a lot more straightforward than I thought it would. It's true, it's easy when you know how. Okay, next, let's look at how to produce an advertisement for a magazine. So first, here's my brief. A new product is being marketed, pizza-flavoured baked beans. The product is aimed at 6 to 12-year-olds. I have to construct an ad which will appeal in magazines bought by women that will have children of this age. The beans are organic, but they are being targeted at children who at present eat junk food. What do I do first? Well, first I analyse ads from women's magazines in much the same way as I have analysed the front cover of Empire. What I've discovered is that the ads that stand out have these codes and conventions. A bold heading, minimal copy, plenty of space, a unique selling point, a slogan, and stereotypical modern images of womanhood, career women, or young stay-at-home mothers. So see how our expert does this.
Well, here we are again, sitting in front of a blank sheet of paper. Only this time we're going to be designing an advertisement for a new product line, pizza-flavoured baked beans. Would you believe it? Anyway, I suppose the first thing we need to do is have a think about what the unique sales propositions are, or USPs, are of such a product. Just make a few notes. Pizza flavoured beans. Okay, what do we know about them? We know that they are organic, therefore they must be good for you. We know that they are quick and easy to prepare. Quick and easy. and we know that children love them. All kids like baked beans. The next thing we need to consider is the advertisement itself. I think we're talking about a single page magazine ad. We'll call it A4, and it's going to be a very traditional advertisement with a headline, a main feature picture or photo, some supporting text, and possibly a pack shot to aid product recognition. And since we don't actually have a pack shot for these baked beans, we'd have to make something up. But the next thing, the most important thing, is who are we selling these beans to? I think we're selling them to the mothers, because they are the people who buy baked beans. If we're selling to mothers, what do we have to tell them? They need to know that the product is good for their children, good for kids. They need to know again that these beans are easy to prepare, which baked beans always are, and we need to work out a good way of selling this product to the mothers. It's got to be witty, eye-catching, interesting. We need to perhaps put our thinking hats on and work out why would kids like baked beans that taste like pizza? Kids like beans, kids like pizza. So what's unique about pizza? It's Italian, it's cheesy, perhaps we don't need to emphasise that too much. So we've got a product and we know that there's a very good chance that the kids will like eating it, the mothers will want to buy it. Where do we go from here? I think we turn over and we have a blank sheet of paper yet again, and we'll just do some thumbnail sketches. This is my preferred way of working. You may work differently. You might want to put some ideas down on a piece of paper, or you may want to draw some things up on the computer. However you work best, that's the best for you. So we have a blank sheet of paper, we've got an ad which will have a headline, may run to 2 lines, we've got a picture, we've got some supporting text, possibly a pack shot, just as a very rough guide to the layout. That'll do for me. We need to work out what is unique about this product. Okay, it's pizza flavoured. How can we show that? We have to find a way to show the baked beans as pizza-ish. So perhaps we'd have a round piece of toast with a slice taken out. Or we might possibly just have the slice. So we'll just try that as a little idea. We'll just have a slice of toast in the shape of a familiar pizza slice with some baked beans on. That could work. Pack shot, supporting copy, headline. The most important thing is the headline. So we need to think up some ideas, perhaps scribble a few different ideas. Why would you want to give this product to your children? Because your kids will love it. Your kids love pizza. Not very exciting, is it? Kids love the taste of pizza. Not particularly inspiring. What about going towards an Italian theme? A little taste of Italy. Like Mama used to make. That's a bit familiar actually. Let's eat Italian. What about give them Italian tonight? Sounds a bit familiar, a bit like chicken tonight, Italian tonight. So how could that work? Let's do a little thumbnail sketch again, a bit tighter this time. And then if this looks okay, if it looks promising, we'll go to the computer and work it up. So we've got a slice of toast in the shape of pizza with some beans on. Give them Italian tonight. That could work because it's enigmatic. It says give them Italian tonight. Looks like a slice of pizza, but it's surprisingly covered in baked beans. Stops you in your tracks, makes you think. Perhaps a bit of supporting copy, a pack shot. Perhaps we could emphasise the Italian here a little bit. Perhaps an Italian flag. Or perhaps one of those little cocktail flags actually sticking out of the pizza. I think that's got a certain amount of promise. Let's go to the computer and see how this flies. Right, here we are in front of the computer screen again. Again, we have our blank sheet of paper. We're going to, first of all, put in the picture, which is one we prepared earlier. And what we did for this was some very clever trickery in Photoshop, but you could just as easily actually make a slice of toast in this shape, put some beans on, make a little Italian flag and take a photograph of it. After all, it's the concept that's important. The execution has to be well done, but really I think that something like this would be very easy to produce. And then we'll put a headline in on top. And referring back to my notes, I think we said give them Italian. So make it bigger. Centered, possibly change the typeface. I think Times is always a good elegant typeface. We can do some clever trickery with the spacing and the leading. Give them Italian tonight. And then we'll put some supporting text across here. There we are. This is something we wrote. The great taste of pizza-flavoured organic baked beans with no artificial flavouring or colouring. Quick and easy to prepare, good for you and good for your kids. And then finally, we'll just put a pack shot in here. There we are. So if you opened a page of a magazine and you saw that, you'd see the headline, give them Italian tonight. You'd see what was initially a slice of pizza but is actually baked beans on toast. So there's a little bit of enigmatic juxtaposition of image with words. And then you've got the supporting copy which tells you exactly why these are good for you. They're organic, they have no artificial flavouring or colouring, they're very easy, quick to prepare. Your kids will love them, and you as a working mother will love them as well.
Okay, again, so easy when you cut away to someone who knows how to do it. After the production stage, you will have to write an evaluation. An evaluation is not describing the whole process or saying how wonderful the production has turned out. Evaluation is looking back at the whole process of producing your coursework and commenting on the advantages and disadvantages of the process. Have you succeeded in your objectives? Could you have done it differently? Did you choose something too ambitious? Did you have to change your method of research because you couldn't persuade your subjects to fill in your questionnaires? Don't leave evaluation to the written stage of your coursework. You can evaluate all the way through and adjust your coursework so it is even better. Sometimes you'll only find out the pitfalls of doing something when you actually have to do it. Would you have done it differently? If so, why? Evaluation can be the best part of the coursework because it allows you to demonstrate to the examiner that you have got to grips with how to construct the media and the restrictions involved. Right. What you've got to remember when producing coursework is plan. Don't leave everything to the last minute, it does show. Research thoroughly. Any analysis skills you acquire will put you in good stead for other modules. Learn to use the equipment. Spend extra time learning how to use the technology.